Good morning, Bills Mafia. Welcome into a special morning pregame edition of the Cover One pregame show hosted by the Air Raid Hour. I'm your host, Tilt Money. Today, we're going through our typical pregame matchup analysis, superlatives, and I will give you my game day prediction for tonight's big matchup in Atlanta between the Buffalo Bills and the Atlanta Falcons. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
good morning, everyone. I am Tilt Money. I'll be your host today for the morning slot of the Air Raid Hour pregame show for tonight's big Monday night football matchup in Atlanta between the Buffalo Bills and the Atlanta Falcons. A little bit different programming today for us as we normally would do our Air Raid Hour show on 9 p.m. Monday nights. But obviously with the game being Monday night, we have a little bit of a different programming for you today. I will be doing a morning pregame show right now, as I am, to go through our normal sort of matchup analysis, superlatives, predictions, and more. Judge will be on 1 hour before kickoff at 6 p.m., hour 15 minutes before kickoff at 6 p.m. to take you all through the inactives list, any surprises there, any last-minute news, and his predictions. So you'll get a little bit of a double dip of an Air Raid Hour pregame today. Myself in the morning, Judge this evening as the inactive lists are mentioned. And I'm going to kind of get into some of the things to look out for on that here in just a few moments. And then, of course, following the game, you'll have the Cover One post-game show with Aaron and Greg, as we always do. So 3 different shows for you today, kind of getting you ready and after Bills Falcons. So big game tonight, as you can see on the graphic here. Updated AFC East standings. The Bills are a half a game ahead of the Patriots after the Patriots beat the New Orleans Saints yesterday in New Orleans in a game that was a little back and forth, but the Patriots are really kind of in control for most of that game. The Dolphins lose yesterday in a very kind of exciting game at the end to the LA Chargers. Chargers had a 10-point lead. A 13-point lead, actually. The Dolphins come back and score twice to take the lead at the end of the game, but the Chargers then, Justin Herbert makes a very nice play to Ladd McConkey at the end of that game to put the Chargers in field goal range to eventually win that game. And then the Jets fall to 0-6 after they really had a chance to win against the Denver Broncos in the international game early yesterday. Jets offensively could not do anything. They got help from some good special teams play, but the Broncos defense sacked Justin Fields 9 times, and the Broncos offense did just enough, and they were pretty bad themselves to move that team to 4-2 and send the Jets to 0-6. So the AFC East standings, obviously, it's a tale of two sides, right? You've got the Bills and the Patriots there at the top, and you've got the Dolphins and the Jets there at the bottom. So it's appearing that this is going to be a 2-team race for the AFC East here as we kind of head into the middle stretches of this season. If the Bills were to lose tonight, the Patriots would actually vault into first place in the AFC East by way of the tiebreaker and having beaten the Bills head-to-head so far this season. But we're not going to talk like that right now. But let's first talk as we get into this game tonight about the injury report. Really, the weather is not really going to be a factor as the game's being played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So weather not a factor for this game tonight. Injuries, however, are a factor. We learned earlier this week that rookie defensive tackle TJ Sanders is being placed on IR. Max Hairston's practice window has not been opened yet, the other rookie. And we are obviously looking at absences still as I pull up the injury report here for all you to see. Matt Milano still out, and you see the TJ Sanders being out there. Damar Hamlin out for tonight. So one of the big questions potentially for this game will be, will we see an elevation potentially for Jordan Poyer as a game day active tonight for the Falcons against the Falcons? And that is a big question that we'll kind of talk about. And obviously, Judge, as he kind of does the show later tonight at 6 p.m., will give you all of his reactions as we kind of see what the official inactives list would be. The two big question marks for the Bills are Dalton Kincaid and Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel has been active the past two games and has made a couple impactful plays in those games, although not high volume, has made a couple impactful plays in those games. We'll be interested to see if he suits up tonight. Sandwiched DNP around two limited practices this week. That's an interesting one. If Curtis Samuel doesn't go, obviously, I think Elijah Moore would kind of just step into that role. But the bigger and more important question mark for the Bills injury-wise going into this game is Dalton Kincaid. 3 limited practices this week after that hand oblique injury. And obviously sort of mentioned the hand injury as well that he suffered in the game last week. But this is a big one, right? Because if Dalton Kincaid is not able to go, Dawson Knox obviously will step into that top role. Jackson Haas still there. But Dalton Kincaid really has been the Bills' number one weapon in the passing game so far this year. You think about sort of his impact after having kind of an injury play 2024, a lot of pressure, I would say, and maybe more so from the fan base than internally within the team. But obviously, Dalton Kincaid has stepped up to that challenge. He is third on the team with 20 receptions, but is leading the team with 287 receiving yards. He's also leading the team with 3 touchdown receptions, and he's second on the team in first down receptions with 14, behind just Keon Coleman, who has 15. So a big injury sort of looming over tonight's game being Dalton Kincaid, and I'll kind of get into what that means for the Bills as far as the matchup is concerned against that Atlanta defense, who is DVOA-wise very, very strong, the number one team against tight ends, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But as we get back into sort of the injury front, like that is the big question mark for the Bills tonight. As far as the Atlanta Falcons are concerned, they will have A.J. Terrell back this week after missing a game. This will only be his third game this season. He was a full practice on Saturday, no injury designation for him in the game. Taquan Graham will be out for the Falcons. Natron Brooks, questionable. And Billy Bowman Jr., a favorite of ours in the pre-draft process for his ranginess, his ball skills, is questionable for Atlanta. So that's a name to keep an eye on. The 3 players out besides Taquan Graham. You've got Darnell Mooney, who for Bills fans, I think is a welcome. It's a welcome sight to see a guy like Darnell Mooney out of this game. I think an underrated receiver in this league, and he's still out with that hamstring injury. Clark Phillips out as well for Atlanta, and Laquelle London also out. Xavier Watts, full practice, no injury designation for him. Daryl Hodge, no injury designation for him as well. So the Falcons do have A.J. Terrell back, but still will be without key sort of weapon on offense there in Darnell Mooney, which I think, to me, Darnell Mooney being out is a big one. They have other weapons, obviously, but that's a guy that can cause matchup problems for the Bills, especially as the Bills have struggled a bit with twitchier receivers as of late. We saw what Stephon Diggs did to their secondary last week, and obviously we a lot of Bills fans and analysts alike have some concerns about this secondary. A lot of people clamoring for Brandon Beane to make a trade for a corner, and all of that's fine. We're not going to get into all that tonight. But yeah, as Aaron says here, Kincaid was just getting going. Bills struggling with injuries this year. Oliver had his best game yet, hurt. Yep. And look, I mean, Ed Oliver, he says he's ready for tonight. He says he's good to go. So again, we will see sort of what kind of impact he can make. He's not on any kind of injury designation for tonight's game. He had a full practice on Saturday, and he will be active tonight, and that's going to be big as the Bills have to try to handle Bijan Robinson tonight. So let's get into the matchups here, and as I always do, I start with my DVOA work when I start to think about the matchups initially, and then I kind of dive in. So we're going to first start with the Bills offense against this Atlanta Falcons defense, who is number one defense in DVOA, if you can believe that. It's true. They're the number one at least as of before this weekend's games, which I don't think they've finalized DVOA until all the games are completed for the prior week. So going into week 6, I will preface by saying the Falcons have the number one DVOA defense, number one DVOA defense against the pass, and the number 12 DVOA defense against the run. As it pertains to specific matchups, they're 16th against wide receiver 1s, 14th against wide receiver 2s, 4th against wide receiver 3 slots, 1st against the tight end, as I mentioned. And so, the importance of Dalton Kincaid in this game, could be that the Bills go completely away from the tight end in this game. So we'll see kind of what happens there. And 5th in DVOA against running backs as receivers out of the backfield. So this is a Falcons defense. They do play a base 3-4, but they're built very similarly to the Bills and stylistically are similar to the Bills in the sense that they are a lighter, more aggressive, more attacking style front that tries to, create highly negative plays through, their high variance rushing. And they are a team that is kind of built in a similar way to the Bills defensively. This Falcons defense, is going up against the Bills offense, who is 6th in offensive DVA, 6th in passing DVOA offense, and 3rd in rushing DVOA offense. So it's a strength on strength matchup here with the Bills offense against the Falcons defense. They are the number one defense in the NFL in raw yards per game allowed as well. So there is an alignment with DVOA there for those of you who also look at the yardage totals in conjunction with the DVOA. And as Aaron says, the Bills offensive line should be able to move Atlanta in the run game. And I agree. And just like, the Falcons offense probably looking to do that as well. So this Bills offensive line should be able to move Atlanta in the run game. I agree with that. The Atlanta Falcons up front, Zach Harrison, Ruke Arorojo, David Onyemata, and Brandon Dorless kind of are on that front. They have Leonard Floyd, former Bill, at one of their outside linebacker spots. Caden Ellis and Divine Diablo inside. Divine Diablo, the converted safety, very rangy linebacker who plays well in that system. And then in the secondary, they are, again, back with A.J. Terrell on one side, Mike Hughes on the other side. We'll see if Billy Bowman is in tonight in the slot. Xavier Watts, a pre-draft favorite from a lot of Bills fans, and maybe some regret there from fans too as well, seeing his play so far this year. Already has 2 interceptions in just 4 games. And then Jesse Bates, the big free agent signing from a few years ago from the Bengals. It's a good secondary for the Falcons as well. And I think people are sleeping on this Falcons defense a bit more broadly. It's a very good defense that Raheem Morris is starting to put together, the guys that he wants in the style that he wants. Obviously, James Pierce, Jalen Walker were the big pass rushing draft picks as well that they made in this year's draft early. They really went heavy on the pass rush there as well. So they've got a nice young core up front, Zach Harrison, Dorless, Caden Ellis, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, all with at least a half a sack this year. And as we kind of start to look into some of the other statistics with this Falcons defense, they've allowed 294 yards or less in every game so far this year. They have not allowed more than 159 passing yards in a game this year. A 78.3 quarterback rating allowed, which is the fourth best in the NFL. However, they have allowed over 100 rushing yards in 3 of 4 games, and goes with their middle of the pack raw statistics that align with their 12th in DVOA. And they have the 10th worst yards per attempt allowed at 4.6 yards per allowed on the ground. Conversely, the Bills are third worst at 5.6. So we'll get into that in a second. And they have not allowed more than 17 first downs to an opponent in any game so far this year. They are the 6th best third. They were, again, going into week 6, they were the 6th best third down defense in the NFL, only allowing 34.1% conversion rate. So again, I think the matchup here, the Bills really need to target, get back to kind of what made them successful in those first several weeks, which was like really riding James Cook, an efficient game on the ground from James Cook. His 15 carries last week against New England, not super efficient. He was under 4 yards per carry there. I think riding James Cook for 20 plus carries tonight makes a lot of sense against that undersized Falcons front, keeping the Bills in a good down and distance schedule again against a pretty good third down defense in the Atlanta Falcons. And I think that for the Bills, really trying to lean again on James Cook and maybe a hint ahead to what my take me higher player will be. Dalton Kincaid, look, questionable. Falcons number 1 against the tight end DVOA. The Falcons have not allowed more than 2 receptions to any of the starting tight ends they've faced so far this year. And it hasn't exactly been like a murderer's row of tight ends they face, but it's been Cade Otton, who's a pretty decent tight end, TJ Hawkinson, Tommy Tremble for the Panthers, and Zach Ertz. So, an okay list of opponents they faced at the tight end position, but none of those guys had more than 2 catches in any game. You try to take advantage of, maybe the linebackers in coverage, although Divine Diablo has been good in that regard as the former safety. But what you need to do against a defense like this, and as Aaron says in the comment section, the aggressiveness has to be used against them. Misdirection. James Cook really pressing those blocks like he has done so well this season on those mid-zone and those outside zone runs, and then cutting back, get those linebackers headed in the wrong direction and cut against the grain there to kind of take advantage of that aggressiveness. Bootlegs, play action, things of that nature to get these guys off their spot, even just for a split second. And I think the Bills can have some success as well. I think the struggle for the Bills really is going to be trying to figure out where to attack this Falcons defense in the passing game. As I mentioned, they haven't faced anyone like Josh Allen yet. The best quarterback they faced was back in week 1, Baker Mayfield. And to this point, they haven't really been tested a ton since then, right? They've, faced a Carson Wentz led, but with a Vikings team, and Bryce Young and the Panthers still figuring things out. No Jaden Daniels when they played the Commanders either. That was a Marcus Mariota game, although he had a pretty decent game there. The Bills really need to figure out how they can work play action, work that aggressiveness against the Falcons, and try to work guys like Shakir and even Elijah Moore, if he's in tonight, for Curtis Samuel, against those linebackers as much as they can in space if you're the Buffalo Bills. That secondary is very good. AJ Terrell will be back on the boundary tonight. Tough matchup for whether it's Coleman or Palmer on the boundary. I think that will continue to be a tough matchup. And obviously Bates and Watts have been great as a safety tandem. trying to get something over the top of this Falcons defense is going to be tricky and is very, again, similar to how the Bills are going to play the Falcons offense. Again, too deep, trying not to let things get over the top. Josh is going to have to, as he has done for better part of the last 3 to 4 years, take what the defense gives them. And I would say that that's really what the Bills need to do against this Falcons defense. Falcons +1 in turnover differential, which is the same mark as the Bills. They're both +1 in turnover differential. So they haven't taken the ball away a ton. They also haven't given the ball away a ton. And so, yes, I would say Shakir has to be big again tonight. I think James Cook on the ground has to be big tonight. Those two guys, I think, need to lead the way. Even if Dalton Kincaid plays and maybe he's not 100%, it's a tough matchup for him. And then you can kind of see what other ancillary contribution you might be able to get from guys like Palmer and Coleman. But in my estimation, Shakir and Cook have to be the ones that sort of lead this offense tonight with Josh Allen. But really, at the end of the day, it's going to be James Cook, I think, on the ground that sets the tone for this offense. And as Aaron says, they haven't given the ball away, but Penix will give you some chances every game he throws some. And he does. He does give you chances, and there's no doubt about that. He's thrown 3 interceptions already so far this year, only 3 touchdowns. So his numbers don't pop off the page at you. 62.4% completion percentage. He's only 7.3 yards per attempt. So his numbers aren't eye-popping. They've really obviously lean on Bijan. And before we transition to talking about Bijan and this Falcons offense, here is a quick word from our sponsor.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
That is Picasso's Pizza, picassospizza.net, sponsoring our show. 4 great locations across the greater Buffalo area. Picassospizza.net had it delivered anywhere in the country. That famous cup and char pepperoni pizza that Picasso's has been making since 1980. Get yourself a pizza before the game. And Aaron says, Bijan Talk has ruined my sleep all week long. And look, he's public enemy number 1 as we then transition to start talking about the Bills' defense against this Falcons offense, who is led by Michael Penix, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. They have weapons on this offense. Offensive line, pretty solid left to right. Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Ryan Neusel, Chris Lindstrom, and Elijah Wilkerson are your left to right offensive line. They still have Ray McCloud, former Bill. Darnell Mooney is out, like I said, for this game. That tandem of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier has been great for that team this year, and Drake London is starting to come on for this team. This Falcons offense, DVOA-wise, 21st overall, 19th in the pass, 17th in the run, due to the fact that they have faced some subpar rushing opponents. They have alternated losses with wins so far in 4 games. Are they due for a loss? After only rushing for 69 yards in week 1 against Tampa Bay, they have rushed for 218, 131, and 128 in their last 3 games. It's been a mixed bag, however, with their passing offense, 289, 108, 201, and 307. They've kind of sandwiched 2 bad games around their 2 good games passing. And it's been only 4 games, but Michael Penix has only been sacked 5 times so far in 2025. So 3 interceptions, yes. Hasn't been sacked a ton. Granted, it has only been 5 games. Again, the grading is what it is. Take it with a grain of salt. PFF's got the Falcons as the number 2 pass blocking unit thus far in 2025. But you cannot start the conversation about the Falcons offense without starting with Bijan Robinson. 314 rushing yards in 4 games so far this year, 4.9 yards per attempt, 18 receptions for Bijan Robinson for another 270 yards. 15 yards per reception as a running back is the best in the NFL for running backs, and is actually the 18th best overall. It was the 18th best overall, I should say, going into week 6. And that is a problem, I think, if you're the Bills. Although DVOA-wise, the Bills actually grade out pretty well against defending running backs out of the backfield. But Bijan Robinson, by far and away, the most efficient receiving running back so far in the NFL this year with his 15 yards per reception. The next closest, again, going into week 6 was Jaylen Warren at 12.9. The Bills are first in DVOA defending running backs as receivers. Does seem odd, doesn't it? But Drake London starting to heat up after a slow start as well. 24 catches, leads the team, 269 receiving yards, actually second on the team behind Bijan's 270. And Kyle Pitts, for all the post-hype sleeper conversation with him, quietly having a pretty nice start to his year with 20 catches so far and 205 yards and a touchdown over his first 4 games. So he's averaging 5 catches per game. And as Jason says, I feel like games like this, we can let Bosa rest a bit more and perhaps play a more disciplined player on the edge. It's going to be interesting, right? Because the Bills are really going to have to get themselves in good down and distance in this game, put the ball in Michael Penix's hands. Over the first 3 weeks of the season, the Falcons offense only averaged 14 points per game, and they were shut out against the Carolina Panthers before their most recent game against Washington before their bye. They put up 34 points, but they are the 10th best third down offense in the NFL, converting at 41.8%. And the Bills improved slightly with their third down defense after the Patriots game, but they are still a bottom half of the NFL third down defense when it comes to conversion rate. The Bills absolutely have to, the high variance style that they play, they have to increase that stuff rate, right? That's been one of their calling cards with the style that they play is, yes, they give up big chunks. They give up some big plays on the ground, but they kind of make up for that with a high number of tackles for loss or tackles in the backfield, negative plays. And that hasn't necessarily come to fruition yet for this Bills defense this year against the run. But if they can somehow find a way to do that tonight and put the Falcons in a situation where they have to lean on Michael Penix in that passing game without Darnell Mooney, yes, the matchup everyone's going to be watching probably is Christian Benford and how he plays against Drake London. But, those Bills linebackers, whether it's Shaq Thompson in tonight, which it seems like it likely will be, and those safeties kind of finding a way to kind of keep Kyle Pitts a non-factor in this game as well. It is important for the Bills to get into themselves in good down and distance situations. And of course, having to watch Bijan out of the backfield, I think is certainly something that's probably been keeping McDermott up at night. This Bills defense, they maybe played their best game of the year, honestly, against the Patriots, and Drake May just had just such a good game when he needed to. But there were some signs of light, I would say, in that Patriots game. And if the Bills can get this Falcons team off schedule, their offense really has to kind of pick it up and try to put this game into a position where the Falcons really can't lean on Bijan as much in the running game, although they would still lean on him in the passing game. But you really need to, if you're the Bills defense, try to take one dimension of that Falcons offense sort of out of play, and that's Bijan in the running game, and do what you can to kind of create some of those high variance negative plays for this Falcons offense. So, Joey Bosa, like people said in the comment section, saving him for those situations. Ed Oliver back tonight, I think, is big for the Bills. Daquan Jones has been playing well this year. It's a big night for Terrell Bernard as well to kind of hopefully have some space to work and play in the running game. He's probably going to be tasked with covering Bijan out of the backfield at times as well. And so it's going to be a big night for Terrell Bernard. Cole Bishop has been playing better as of late. Taylor Rapp has been in the ire of Bills fans as of late. What is he going to do to help you sort of on the back end against Drake London and Kyle Pitts? We'll see. Unfortunate with all the injuries the Bills have had in the secondary, and hopefully, we can kind of see a little bit of better play from the Bills at the cornerback position. I know there's concerns about Trey White and sort of what's going to happen with him as the season progresses. Max Hairston's still not back. Christian Benford has been also under the microscope from a lot of fans as well for maybe not living up to the billing so far this year. But the big thing I really think is staying on schedule. Tackling has to be improved for the Bills tonight. Again, they are getting penetration. They are getting into the backfield. They are getting behind the line of scrimmage, but they are not taking these ball carriers down at first contact. And with a guy like Bijan, who's already hard to take down at first contact, you really cannot let that guy slip through the grass too many times because he will hurt you and he will make you pay. As Aaron says here, AJ Epinesa second in pass rush pressure among all pass rusher. I think that was pass rush win rate among all pass rushers, 20% of snaps. So that's obviously huge for him. And he's been good against the run as well in his career. So again, underrated or under the radar player so far for this Bills defensive front has been AJ Epinesa. So really, I think, yes, Joey Bosa on the edge, sort of making that contain, but Rousseau and Epinesa, I think, on the edge will do a good job with those contains. I think it's up the middle of that Bills defense with Oliver back tonight. Will we see an improvement there? And can we see some of those negative plays? Like, can we see the Bills on a 1st and 10 get the Falcons into a 2nd and 12 with a negative play on 1st down? That's what we really need to. All pressure states 35. There you go. Can we see a couple of those negative plays to really try to get the Falcons off schedule? And that will be sort of one of the keys for tonight's game. Falcons coming off their bye week, so they're rested and they're at home. The Bills obviously just getting the one extra day of rest because the game's on Monday. But it's going to be a tough task I think for this Bills defense tonight, and they really have to kind of find a way to create some of those high variance negative plays. So with that said, we will now move on to our pregame superlatives. Pregame superlatives, as we do every week. For those of you who haven't seen the show before, if those of you who have, just a reminder, we do a little bit of fun stuff here on the show with the pregame superlatives. And since I'm solo this morning, I'm not sure if Judge will do his pregame superlatives tonight. I'm sure he will. I'm going to do like a my answer and then an honorable mention, since we usually have 2 answers for this. And as always, we will start with our Take Me Higher player of the game. All right, Bills fans, Take Me Higher player of the game. It is a Bills player not named Josh Allen who needs to have a big game, and a star player, we'll call it above average star player or star player not named Josh Allen, who has to have a good game tonight for the Bills to win. A good option, maybe Ed Oliver, who's coming back from injury, but I'm going again with James Cook. I think it has to be James Cook tonight for the Bills after a sluggish game a week ago against the Patriots, and kind of didn't feel as it wasn't as efficient as he had been in the first 4 games of the year. James Cook against this undersized Falcons defensive front, this Bills offensive line, who has been great in the running game. It's time for James Cook to get back on track tonight for this Bills offense and sort of show what this Bills offensive line can do as well, get their swagger back, and James Cook getting his swagger back as well. James Cook is dominating this Bills backfield so far this year. 90 attempts for him on the year for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaging 5 yards per carry. Ray Davis, 13 attempts. Ty Johnson, 10 attempts on the ground. So James Cook is dominating the backfield touches this year, only 1 reception apiece as well for Ty Johnson and Ray Davis so far this year, which is a bit interesting, but that's just what it is. And so James Cook, to me, it's got to be him tonight as the take me higher player of the game. For honorable mention, I'll go with Ed Oliver returning from injury and trying to sort of stabilize the interior of that Bills defensive front against Bijan Robinson. So up the middle, obviously important for James Cook to get it going against that Falcons front, and equally as important for the Bills defensive front to try to keep Bijan in check as much as they can, because he is going to get his. But with Ed Oliver back, you hope that brings a little bit more back to that Bills defensive front. So I'll go with Ed Oliver as the honorable mention for Take Me Higher. And up next is our wild card player. Wild card player, a non-star player or maybe more obscure player on the Bills who could have an impact tonight in the game that helps in a positive way or maybe in a negative way. But I'm going to go with, and this may end up blowing up in my face because he may not even be active for this game. But if he is active, so I'll kind of asterisk this one. I'll say Elijah Moore as my wild card player with some of that misdirection that I think the Bills are going to need to do tonight to take advantage of that Falcons aggressiveness. And if it's not Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel is active, then I'll kind of kind of say it's Curtis Samuel. Whoever's playing that role for the Bills tonight, that Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel role, whether that's doing some of the things maybe we saw the Chiefs do last night with Hollywood Brown, if you watch that game, using him in the backfield a little bit as well on some of those pitch passes, getting those guys in motion before the snap to kind of get the Falcons leaning one way or moving one way and take them back the other way. So from a wild card perspective, I think it makes sense it's one of these two guys, because one of these guys probably not going to be active. And so whatever one is active, I will say will be the wild card player for tonight. So Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel for me. Look, honorable mention. I think it's fair. Like Aaron mentioned it in the chat. I think AJ Epinesa can be a wild card on the defensive side. Length, maybe getting his hands up. Obviously, Penix is a lefty, so AJ Epinesa will be on that throwing side of Michael Penix tonight, getting those hands up, blocking some passes down potentially for him, and maybe making a play or two in the run game, sniffing out a screen, something of that nature. AJ Epinesa has been under the radar, playing very well so far this year. So I'll give AJ Epinesa the honorable mention of the wild card player of the game. Up next, our Respect You player. Respect You player, a player on the opposing team that we really have to obviously keep an eye on. And I think, look, this is really an easy one. It's a layup. It's Bijan Robinson for me for the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's on his way probably to an all-pro season. He leads their team in receiving yards with 270. I mentioned the 15 yards per reception, leading all running backs in top 20 in the NFL, even when mixed in with receivers and tight ends. So it at home, after a bye, the Bills not really doing a good job so far this year on the stuff rate for the run defense. But they have been good, conversely, at defending running backs as receivers. So it'll be interesting to see, because that's obviously a huge strength. And what makes Bijan Robinson so special is that sort of dual threat he brings as both a receiver and a runner. And so for me, this is an easy one. The Respect You player for Atlanta has to be Bijan. They have a lot of good players too, and I'm not trying to disrespect any of their other good players that they have, but man, Bijan, to me, is option number one. And as No Bones About It says, everyone worried about Bijan, I say London. He's my honorable mention. I think Drake London is heating up, had a really good game against Washington right before the bye. He is heating up, and he is a problem. That matchup where he maybe will be matched up with Christian Benford a lot. The Falcons may try to also get Drake London matched up with Trey White tonight, which is obviously a huge mismatch for them in a good way for the Falcons. And so, wow, what is this? Look, the game's at 7:15 tonight, and we had some like scheduling decisions to make. So I'm doing the show this morning, so people can kind of hopefully watch it throughout the day. And then Judge is going to go live at 6 p.m. tonight, like I mentioned at the start of the show, to kind of go through the inactives list. So yes, it is a bunch of malarkey to have this show so early in the morning, but hey, you're here, so I appreciate it. But Drake London will be my honorable mention for the respect you player, 2 offensive players for the Falcons on a team who has the number 1 DVOA defense. So team defense really for the Falcons, but very good defensive players across the board. Up next, not really our thing to do hot takes, but our hot take. Hot take for the game tonight, and number of ways you can go with this one. Like, is Jordan Poyer going to be active tonight? Brandon Codrington may be inactive again. So, maybe a hot take, and this is like just because why not, right? Like, why not? Because we don't know if he's going to be active or not. And if he's not active, this won't matter. But how about Jordan Poyer active and an interception tonight? How about that? Is that hot enough for some of you? And again, he may not even be active, and I'm not even necessarily expecting him to be active. But DeMar's out. We could see Poyer active tonight. But hey, this is the hot take section. We'll say it's a hot take, and I don't even know the inactives yet. So this could look really dumb later on, but this is the hot take section for a reason, and I'm going to try to make mine a little hotter than whatever Judge has. So Jordan Poyer active tonight and gets an interception. That's a hot take for you. And last but not least, that leads us into our game predictions. All right, my game prediction, I guess I should say, for tonight. This is a good Falcons team, I think. I know they're 2-2. They've kind of alternated good games with bad games. Defensively, they're very good. Offensively, they haven't necessarily gotten their passing game going yet as much as they've wanted to, but I think it's getting there. And they obviously have Bijan. The Bills' offense needs to start hot tonight. I think this Bills' offense needs to. I think the Bills' offense needs to kind of dictate this game tonight. The defense will be tasked to kind of slow down Bijan and kind of force the Falcons in some long down and distances. But that Bills' third down defense, we'll see how that matches up against the Falcons. Good third down offense. But the Bills' offense, I think, tonight needs to be the one to dictate this game. It needs to be a James Cook game, like I said. I think they need to dominate up front this Falcons defensive line. I think playing inside, Josh has always really played pretty well outside of that one Houston game indoors. And I think there will be some urgency for this Bills offense tonight after some of the comments that Josh Allen made after the loss last week against the Patriots. So let's hope that it's a 2-for-2 on the AFC East, winning on the road against an NFC South team this week in week 6 as the Patriots beat the Saints on the road. The Bills, I will predict, will beat the Falcons tonight, but I do think it's going to be a close game. I think that it needs to be a clean game for this Bills offense, no turnovers. It'd be great if the Bills themselves could get a takeaway or two, and I think that would really kind of turn the tide in the favor of the Bills tonight if their offense, again, has that urgency, which I expect them to have, and I do think they will be able to score some points on this Falcons defense. The Commanders, again, going into the bye week, the Commanders were able to put up 27 points against this Falcons defense. And the week before, the Carolina Panthers blanked this Falcons defense 30-0. So there is no reason why the Bills can't score around 30 points tonight if they're humming. TBD whether Dalton Kincaid's in or not, but I think that the Bills tonight do find a way to win. They do hit that 30-point mark. I think it's Bills 31, Falcons 24. I do think it's a one-score game. I think the offenses both kind of trade blows, but eventually the Bills offense, I think, does more than the Falcons offense, and the Bills win 31-24 tonight on the road to keep that 1-game lead in the AFC East. So that'll just about do it for the morning show today. Join Judge later tonight at 6 p.m. before kickoff to go through all the inactives. Will Jordan Poyer even be active? What will we see? Will Dalton Kincaid be active? Curtis Samuel, what's going on with him? He'll have all of that for you covered live at 6 p.m. tonight on the Cover One YouTube channel. And then obviously following the game, as always, every week is Aaron and Greg on the Cover One Buffalo post-game show. Hopefully a victory parade for that show. So join Aaron and Greg right after the game for the Cover One post-game show. So 3 shows for you today from Cover One. No normal air raid, obviously, tonight because they will be during the game, so we won't have that. But you'll still get 3 shows tonight from the Cover One Network, and we do appreciate you all tuning in this morning and throughout the day if you're able to watch on replay. So I do thank you all in the comments section this morning. I hope you have a great day ahead and hope the Bills win tonight. And until the next time you see us, which will maybe not be for a couple weeks because the Bills are on bye after this, I wish you all a good day and go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!